Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is understanding that, God created the world a certain way, and the same principles that apply to the spiritual life apply to the physical, and they also apply to financial. There's laws in this universe that guide things that are based upon the character of God. And yes, the world has fallen, and so everything doesn't work exactly how it was intended to work, but the framework is still there. And I know that there are people like Jocko and whoever else who've made, discipline and all these other things very popular. And that's great. That's wonderful. Discipline is a virtue. But, we should understand it within the context of the Orthodox spiritual life, which is, we read this in the saints, and we see this in the saints, the need for consistency. Men thrive off of consistency. And so it's important to lift weights. It's important to be in shape, just like it's important to do your morning and evening prayers, to keep the Wednesday, Friday fast, to keep the church calendar fast, no matter how you feel about it.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest movements from boyhood to manhood is setting aside your feelings, setting aside your emotions, and being committed to something that's both greater than yourself and isn't dependent on how you feel. And I feel like a lot of men trip themselves up by getting in their head and just becoming, neurotic. I mean, there's a lot of neuroticism with men these days, and over contemplation and overthinking things.
Mm.
And you've got to make decisions. You've got to move forward. Being disciplined and having goals and reliability, and these character traits are, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal character traits. And at the end of the day, it has to be something that comes from within yourself. Like, you have to see these things as being valuable. You have to value them. Like, you can't value them because somebody else tells you to value them. I'll give a perfect example. Is like almost every guy that I've ever worked with who was engaging in self-abuse, internet pornography, whatever, right? One of the biggest differences between success and failure was the inner accountability. And the guys who took ownership really take ownership and say, this is not the man I want to be. They are, because they're all going to be, everybody's going to be tempted, right? The temptation is going to be everywhere. It's just, that's the way it is, right? You can't turn the temptation off. But those guys who say, I'm not entertaining those thoughts, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that, and they begin to define themselves as like, I'm not a scumbag, I'm not participating in this, they have vastly more success than when people say, well, I shouldn't do it because,
Mhm.
like, Father is going to give me a penance at church, or I shouldn't do this because I know it's wrong. You have to take ownership. And I think that's one of the biggest thing with men is we as men thrive when we take ownership of our life, when we take ownership of loving our wives, loving our kids, job performance, participating in church, getting involved. I mean, that's where we thrive as men. Maybe I should say that's where I thrive as a man, but every godly man I know is like that. They're hard chargers, man. They're the tip of the spear. They're involved. They're very action oriented. And when men are sitting around in their thoughts, contemplating and debating themselves and chat rooms and all this nonsense, and that's just not a healthy place for men. I believe men need to be doers. We thrive in action, and the church gives us this, this awesome structure for
Yeah.
what every day, what every week, and what every season and what every year looks like. And even recently, like, we've got the Lenten fast coming up, and we just finished. We finished the nativity fast, man, and I basically probably got COVID for about a week, and then started throwing up, and basically had flu for a week. And so, right after the nativity fast, my fast more or less got extended for 2 more weeks, and it was psychologically challenging for me, because I had really built it up in my mind, like, man, we're going to break the fast. We're going to go eat In-N-Out. It's going to be awesome. And then I just basically took an L for 2 weeks, man. It just got jacked up, and lost weight and lost muscle. And I kind of bounced out of that. And then I'm looking at the calendar and it's like, man, Lent is like 5 weeks away. I'm like, right. And so psychologically, like, as a man, I have to be bought into it. I have to be engaged in it. And so even my homilies, are ramping people up for Lent, but they're ramping me up too. They're getting it in my mind. I have to be engaged. Even we're in the new church building, and I'm thinking about, yeah, we're going to celebrate Pascha here, man. It's going to be an awesome Pascha. And, I love, obviously, we all love Pascha, but, you got to start thinking, okay, I'm just getting through Lent so I can get to Pascha. I'm embracing this. And when you embrace this and you embrace discipline and you embrace, honestly, when you embrace suffering and asceticism and all these different things, it's very freeing. You feel very free as a man because you're just in it. You're not a victim. You're not doing it because somebody else told you to do it. You are involved. You are engaged. And if there's one thing that we need in our church, is men that are really engaged in living their faith, not on the internet doing a bunch of nonsense, but loving their wives, serving at the church, cleaning the church building, just being engaged in the services and the fasting and everything else, man. You cannot get lost as a man when you're doing that stuff. So that's my big encouragement, man, is take, personal responsibility and also, it sounds crazy, but become the man that you want to be, there's always going to be, all of us see ourselves more clearly than anybody else on some level, and we all know the things that we don't like about ourselves, but in the other way, like you need to become somebody that you can at least say, like, hey man, I may not be perfect, I got lots of faults, I got lots of things I'm embarrassed of. Maybe even you get things in your life that you did in the past that you're ashamed of, but you're like, I'm not living like that anymore, I'm not doing that now. And I think that's a really, there's that saying, I think it's from St. Isaac the Syrian. He says, make peace with yourself and heaven and earth will make peace with you. And there's that sense in which, like, you have to be engaged in your own well-being. It can't be the priest, it can't be this person, it can't be that person, it can't be everybody else nannying you and mothering you and your wife telling you to get off the video games and whatever else. Like, that does not fly. You've got to have a vision of manhood and being engaged and being a hard charger. And the thing is, and this is what the world doesn't tell you, man, when your wife loves you and she admires you and she looks at you and treats you with respect and honor, and she does it because she just sees who you are, and you love her like crazy, and she loves to be loved by you, the richness, man, the richness of that is just beyond anything that you can get from the world. The world does not offer that type of love and esteem. And when your children love you and they respect you and they are excited to see you and engage you and want to hug you, and it's this deep intimacy that you get with people. And when people feel like they know they can rely on you and you're a person of action and you can hold your word, dude, all those feelings are the feelings that people are looking for in video games and porn and this and that. And all that stuff is all artificial. It's all just nonsense. And it's all artificial, because when all that stuff ends, you're just some schmuck. None of it's real. It's all just fantasy. But you can really live in the Orthodox life. You can live just an awesome, just an absolutely stellar life in Christ. You can create, man, the life that you wish you had, like with God's grace. You're not like, you're not deifying yourself. Like, God is giving you the grace to do these things. And
but it takes a lot of self-will, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to be bought in.
Yeah.
You have to be bought into it. And that has to come from within yourself. And you read the saints. You read the saints to keep getting pumped up. You go to church, you have to stay engaged, because the devil is constantly trying to railroad you somewhere else. So, but that's probably my biggest thing, man. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your family life was like. I come from a divorced home. My wife comes from multiple divorces in her family. And my wife was living on her own when she was 14 years old. And it's I could just get into all that, but it's an absolute miracle. Like, what God can do with your life. It's just unbelievable. It's unmatched. It's unmatched. There's nothing like it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you walk towards him, I'm convinced he's never gonna walk away from you. He's
Yeah.
you there. So 100%.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Father. Hey, that was
Yeah.
all. It really was, and this is a great conversation. I hope it, I think it'll be very helpful for a lot of people, especially a lot of young men and of all ages too. But I appreciate your perspective and your time, and hey, I wish you a great Lent on
Thank you too, brother.
really joyous Pascha in that new church of yours. Okay.
Amen. Yeah. A blessed Lent to you, Father. Good struggle. A good struggle.
All right, Father.
All right.
Take care.
I'll be with you. By your prayers.